you get visited by the muse, and you have to show up like waiting with like the baseball mitt. And like sometimes the muse will drop one in there, and other times they don't. And so it's like that's a good way to like kind of remove your ego from it too. You show up for the quantity, and the muse shows up for the quality. And then so you make like 100 things, and you keep like 10 of them. And so the hard part there is like not getting like down when you make something that like just isn't good. Like it happens all the time to anyone that makes music. Most of it is not good. And so if you show up a lot of times, then eventually you can assemble enough that's like, this is good, you know?
Here we are. We've got Eli from Dopapod and Octave Cat. Eli, man, so glad to have you here on the show. So for everyone out there listening, Dopapod, they just put out a new album. It's fucking awesome. And Eli, you guys are playing with George Clinton and PFunk coming up. You getting excited for that, man?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Cam. Very good to be here. I'm a big fan of the show. I've listened to a few episodes, and yeah, man, it's awesome to be here. So thanks for having me. And yeah, we just put out a new album that felt great. It felt like a huge, like I just, you know, took a huge dump, honestly, you know, just like release, like, it's over. But now on to new things. And yeah, we got the huge tour with PFunk, which is like, I can't even believe it's happening. A lot of things right now, I just can't even really believe it's happening. It's kind of like, just really cool, really surreal.
Can you take me back and tell me the story of you originally dedicating your life to being a musician?
I think it's probably, I started at a really young age. I was like 6 years old playing piano, and then I started playing drums and guitar and bass. And I knew I was like really into music. But I would say in high school, there was a point where I was like, am I going to be a psychologist or a musician? And I just like, at a certain point, it was just so clear to me that it's going to be music. And to the point that my teachers in high school would just like, they would just let me leave class and go to the music room like anytime I wanted. Like everyone knew that I was going to be like a musician. Probably for worse more than better. I wish that I like really studied more and like learned more in school, which is like a classic old person thing to say. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change anything. But at some point in high school, like I started playing, and I always had like a few bands. Starting in like third grade, I would do the talent shows in my school, and that was like the most nervous I've ever been before that first one in like third grade. And I was like shaking and sweating and like so nervous. And then just did a bunch of talent shows, had like, you know, basement bands with my friends. We would play like System of a Down, Tool, Nirvana. We would just play like all this kind of cover stuff. And I would try to write songs, but I had like no idea what I was doing at all. And then I was always like, also while I was doing all that, also was into jazz piano since a very young age. Like I started with jazz, and I was in jazz band, and did like, my high school had a really good jazz band program. So we used to travel around and do that. But then simultaneously, I was in a reggae band in my town called Crucial, that they were like not way older than me. I was like 15. They were like 23, you know, 22, 23, which at the time felt like they were way older than me. I think at that point I was like, this is cool. I like doing this. And I knew that I wanted to like, you know, go to Berkeley or like one of the music schools and really just kind of go for it.
What would you say is the original reason that you fell in love with music?
I don't know why I did. It was like at a very young age, my sister was taking piano lessons, and then so I would like watch her take her lessons. And there was like the son of her piano teacher was like really good at piano, and he was like a few years older than me. And I like saw him playing, and I think there was just a part of me that was like, wow, that is really cool that he can do that. And so my sister kind of like phased out of that, and I kind of took over. And I think honestly, this is like, if we're going to go like kind of deep about my psyche and stuff, like this is where like the first problem happened, is that like it got like good attention from people when I could play. Like I'd go to, my sister was taking like voice lessons, and then her voice teacher would be like, Eli, come play. And I would like I would like play for everybody. And it's like, wow, you're special now, you know? And it's like, I feel like so much of my self-esteem and my like like my self-worth is like tied into the music. And I'm like working on like, you know, uprooting a lot of that kind of stuff. It's a slow process, I think, because if you like get excited about the high moments, then you get equally discouraged by the lows. And so like learning to not get too excited about things or not get too upset, that's like what I'm trying to do. I think it's also just trying to like develop other aspects of myself and like meditating and exercise and all that stuff. If you can force yourself to do something that's uncomfortable, then the rest of your day, like you feel a little bit better, you know? But I'm working on the whole not having my self-worth in music. Like you play a gig and like you're not happy with it, and then like you have to wait till the next gig to, it's like a lot like sports. I was just watching a Kevin Durant interview with David Letterman, and he talked about
Nice.
that. Like he learned so much about life through the sport of like not getting too high or too low at any time, because you can be great one night and then for whatever reason you didn't sleep enough, you didn't eat the right stuff, you whatever, you have all this other stuff in your mind, like you don't perform as well. And so then you want to perform better the next time. And then, so it's just like, it's a cycle. And the more you do it, you become more aware of it. And then you can do a better job of like directing the ship, controlling the sails with the winds blowing.
Yeah, I'm so interested in like the why behind people who are at like the top of their craft, like you mentioned Kevin Durant, even
Yeah.
like David Letterman in his
Yeah.
own right. Where you're at now today, like what is the why behind what drives you?
Well, a lot of it for me now is like, I feel like my bandmates like devoted so much of their life to this, and I just want it to succeed so that we all like, it's not any time wasted already. Like even if it ended right now, it's still like that was amazing and great job. We like happy we did it. Speaking for myself, but I know that they also like, because I brought this up to them and they said like, no, even if it ended right now, like it wasn't a waste. But like part of me, the why now, it's like I want to keep getting better and better so that it grows more and more, so that like it's just like it's such a cool thing that we have, like most people don't have a band that they've been playing in this long and they've been friends this whole time. And I just want it to keep going so that it continues to grow and blossom, so that we can be like, definitely was not a waste of time. I cannot fucking believe we're doing this shit, right? That's kind of like the why now for me.
Having been on all these stages for all this time, like from being a kid where you're still kind of figuring out your status or whatever that might be, to then a decade of screaming fans looking up at you on stage, like I just have no clue about how that would affect your psyche like that.
Yeah, it's like I feel like the person that was playing on stages this whole time, it's not like the part of me that just like speaks my words and communicates with people. It's like a different part. It's like the other language that I speak. It's the music.
Mm.
And that part of me is like, yeah, sure, like less nervous than, it's way less nervous than like the public speaking part of me. If I had to go up and just talk and like that, I'm horrified of that.
Well, that's cool to know that it's just like they don't overlap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And it's weird too. I have a stutter, which I'm like, I really kind of don't anymore, but I kind of do. I had a stutter growing up and now I don't. I do though. I get nervous and sometimes I can't say certain words and I have to like choose other words and other stuff in the moment. But yeah, I've been practicing speaking. That's one of the things that like I read out loud, and that I feel like that's kind of helped me. It's like just kind of, warming up. Unique New York, one of those.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear what you've learned over the course of your career about what's involved with being a great leader.
I have actually read some books about this and kind of done some internal thinking and stuff about it. I think the best leaders encourage everyone else around them to be a leader as well. And that means giving up what you want all the time. Really, it's like everyone has their different roles in a situation, and like knowing when your voice is really necessary or whether it's like does this really make a difference right now? Actually, it makes more of a difference for me to let this go and let like, someone else's opinion happen than for me to like insert like mine. Like all the time it's like that, I think.
Do you have any insights into like how to execute that kind of leadership, like into how to empower others to be in that leadership mindset?
I think maybe asking for it when you need it. I don't know. It's like being aware of your inner feelings about stuff. Like sometimes if it's like, why am I so aggravated about this? Like take a second and like breathe and just look at that and be like, just for a second, be like, maybe, am I wrong? And be like, you know what? Totally, I'm wrong. Like, and so like the more you can do that, then I think it's just like a more harmonious situation with everybody.
Jump in just a little to the side. How do you think meditation and mindfulness have helped you become a better musician, or can help somebody become a better musician?
First of all, I think meditation is like necessary for everybody. And it's like basically doing push-ups for your attention in your head, and like getting better at just knowing what's going on up there. Like the more you meditate, the more you realize like my brain just wanders all over the place all the time. And you can just like catch yourself like 5 minutes that you weren't focusing on your breath, that you were thinking about all this stuff, that like your brain is like addicted to that and addicted to the like let's figure it out, like at least maybe my brain is like that. I'm sure other people is the same thing. So practicing being aware of what's happening, and then also practicing not getting upset about like you didn't accomplish being present, like you didn't do it, and like there's like this reaction you have like, damn, I can't like focus, and like getting mad at yourself. Like instead of doing that, it's like, it's okay, that's just the way it is and that's what happens, and you just like let it go, and then you come back and practicing that over and over and over and over and over. Then when you're on stage and you're super nervous and all this stuff's happening, you're like wait a minute, I haven't taken a breath in like 2 minutes, and I'm like rushing and playing crazy shit. I was like, just like, and then it's like, then you can like really just behave in the way that you want yourself to be behaving, instead of like letting your brain drive the ship.
Eli, I know you have this tremendous work ethic. I was talking to Rob, and he was saying that is something he completely like admires about you. And I want to get like a look into your creative practice. Can you talk about kind of your day-to-day workflow?
So quick little tangent to start this off. Love the Sixers, or I don't know, I'm kind of like a love-hate situation at this point, but I've been like, I forgot how much I loved basketball for a while. And then I got to this point where like the Sixers were like, like good again. And I was like, oh shit. Like when I was a kid, that was the first thing I wanted to be in the NBA. Like I wanted to, like I loved basketball. And so I remembered how much I loved it. And then that's been kind of like my thing that I do for enjoyment. One of the things I do for like enjoyment when I want to just like turn off and like, watch sports. But one of the things with the Sixers that really like turned me on to it is like trust the process. Whole thing with like Joel Embiid, that's like his nickname. And it's like also with the whole thing with the tanking, they like lost on purpose so that they could get the better draft picks. So that was like, trust the process. Like, we're going to play bad now, we're going to lose, but we're going to get these better picks, and then we'll get these players that are better, and then we'll build something that's going to like win a lot of championships. Don't have to go into how that's all failed and it was a waste of time. No. But anyway, so like trust the process for me is like, you can either grow, you're either growing every day incrementally, or you are falling backwards incrementally. Like if you show up every day and like just kind of build a step, then you can take the step, and then you can build another step, and you can keep building up. And if you do it every day, then it's like you will inevitably grow and change in the positive direction. But if you don't show up, then you just fall back, and then you fall back, and then you fall. Like, so it's binary. Like you just do this or you do that. And if you can just have that mindset of like, I'm just going to show up every day and I'm going to do it. It doesn't have to be like 5 hours every day. It can be like, I'm going to work on my vocals, so I'm going to sing half an hour every day, or even 10 minutes every day. Sing scales for 10 minutes and check it off the list. And that's the process for me, is like, trust it. And so I have like a bunch of things on like my list that if I accomplish like 3 to 5 of these things every day, then like I can be like, all right, you know, it's just like you can just feel good about your day. Like, all right, I did these things, and now you know, so like you can trust the process. The other thing with the trust the process too, with like creating. So like I don't know where I get all this stuff, but it's just from like reading and podcasts and all this random stuff. But there was this one about like there's like the muse. You get visited by the muse, and you have to show up like waiting with like the baseball mitt. And like sometimes the muse will drop one in there, and other times they don't. And so it's like that's a good way to like kind of remove your ego from it too. You show up for the quantity, and the muse shows up for the quality.
Mm.
And then so you make like 100 things, and you keep like 10 of them. And like, so the hard part there is like not getting like down when you make something that like just isn't good. Like it happens all the time to anyone that makes music. Most of it is not good. And so if you show up a lot of times, then eventually you can assemble enough that's like, this is good, you know?
How do you decide when a song is finished?
It's like never finished, you know, like you put it out when it's like, you can't, there's never like, it's just done. Like, but I don't know. I guess if I listen through it a bunch of times, and the more I listen to a song, the more I'm like expecting things to happen. And then there comes a certain point where all the things that happen, they're like, I don't like that. I don't like that. Like everything that I thought that I didn't like after, you know, hearing it back a few times, like I fixed all of it, and I'm like, all right, done.
Can you talk to me about some of your favorite aspects of Dopapod's music?
I think like Chuck and Neil have such a unique thing that they do that no one else could ever do anything like that. Like them, like they have such a unique combination of influences and like approach and like philosophy for it all that allows things to go in like unique directions. It's not just like the whole time is like the same, like it can just go anywhere. And like even to like blast beats and like punk and like metal, like I'm into all that, you know. And like at first I wasn't sure if I was into that. And the more that I'm like, when I hear blast beats, I'm like, yeah, like I don't know. It's just it's fun. I love all the stuff that Neil has been doing with his electronics and the effects and cool like sending us MIDI clock to like the arpeggiator and to Rob's looper and all of that. It's like we've just created, it's like a house plant that's like grown into this crazy shit now where it's like all these new things are happening. And Chuck is a great bass player. He serves the music so well. And I think that takes a lot of like, first of all, being aware of it and like understanding what it is. Like most people, like most bass players, I think are like, look at how good I am, like trying to be like Victor Wooten or something. And he's just really like the approach of like, you know, Tim LaFave and like Pino Palladino and, you know, Family Man, like that. I think he said those are his three. And I so like the way those guys play, where it's like never really trying to like show off, but he can play like really intricate, cool shit, which he does. But he like is a really good listener, and I think Chuck too. Just everything he's doing outside of music, he really brings like more of like the philosophical approach to the whole thing. Same with Neil too, and then like Rob, I mean, is just amazing. And it's like so fun. Like we have such a similar vocabulary. He probably actually has expanded his in all these different ways that I haven't really gone as far into. But we just like, because we've been playing together for so long, anytime I learn a new thing, I like call him like, yo, check this out. I didn't even know about this, and like show it to him. He's like, whoa. And then we like, so like, and it's really been like that from the start. Like we've kind of just like been on the same path, obviously with being in the same band for forever. And then I love his voice. He has like, I remember the first time I heard him sing, and he like sings high and belts it out. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't know he could do that. And I was just like this whole other element that he adds to it. And yeah, he just is raw and like kind of has like the like Joe Walsh shit, like like the bends and the just the weirdness. And I just like, you know, weird music. I like we like when we get weird, and finding the balance of like very strange but also like very beautiful and like that kind of merger. is what I'm all about.
What do you think the strangeness, how do you think that complements the beauty?
They can exist at the same time. You know what I mean? It's like the tritone is like, if you hear it, it's like weird. It's like a weird sound compared to, but you can use the tritone in like all different ways. So like you can do like dark tritone, like, but you can do like take that same note and you can make it into Lydian tritone shit where it's like it's like the same notes, but it's like the notes you surround it with is what makes you feel certain ways. So it's like a Venn diagram, I would say, with I don't know, strange. I was like, as a kid, like that was the music that always, like anytime there was that like twang of the tritones in there and like the flat twos, and I just was like, ooh. And it's probably from like System of a Down and Tool, Nirvana. That was like my shit.
How would you explain your personal musical philosophy?
I think there's like something to be said for like playing music that is like historically like accurate. You know, like we play late 60s era like boogaloo, like in the style of Grant Green, and like doing it like justice, and like that is cool in its own way, you know. But I think being like lucky enough to like do original music, I feel like there's a responsibility to like find your little like unique pockets and like seeing where that goes, and like trying, because if everyone is copying everybody, then it's just everything's the same. But like the only thing that opposite of that is like everyone doing something that's like a little bit them, but you're never like completely unique. Everyone has influences from their whole life that like, it's like a snowball going down the hill and like collecting, you know. It's like, so it's like we're all kind of one organism, like expressing music through our daily activities, maybe. And then we record it sometimes, and then people hear that recording and they're like, oh shit, that's cool. And then they do their own thing with that. So it's kind of just like, it's like something to do with your time where you can be yourself and express yourself, and like trying to find the stuff that makes you feel a certain ways, and like seeing where that leads. And as a philosophy, it's just like my job too. It's just like my way of life now. And so there's always like a reason for me. I could be like at any time I could like be practicing or working on stuff. But then also it's like you have to be a full human to make the best music.
Mhm.
And so like sometimes like you're better off not practicing and going on a hike, and just like you can actually like, that is a way better place to like think. And then when you like, that's how you have like your best ideas. Like when the best ideas come to you when you're brushing your teeth or like doing the dishes or on a walk in nature. Sometimes that is what you need to do. Actually, like half the time, probably that's what you should be doing, instead of just like music, like fucking live, like, you know, like that. And then that comes through in the music, hopefully. And the whole thing too is like, it's hard, a hard lifestyle, the traveling and having to perform all the time, and constantly pushing and like trying to push everyone around you, and people get mad that you want to do that. And you know, it's just like constantly like, it's just like, oh god. So it's like, it's hard. I think the whole thing with music is like not quitting, but it's like sometimes that's what you have to do, and sometimes you have to just like take a break and come back to it. And it's like, doesn't need to be like, I'm quitting music, you know. Just like, I'm not doing that right now, I'm doing other shit. And but yeah, I don't know why, like, I don't know, this music for me has always been, I've just always been really into it.
So we're talking a little bit about basketball.
Mm,
You know, people like Kevin Durant, they go hard in the film room. And
exactly.
yes, and I want to talk about you and your approach to phrasing. What do you think it is about your approach to phrasing that impacts listeners in the way that it does, that has led for people to love your keyboard playing how they do?
So we were saying, like, before we started recording, I listened to the John Medeski episode that you did before this past weekend. I was playing with Muscle Tough as a guest, opening for DJ Logic with John Medeski and Rob and Jesse and Mike from Lotus. And like I asked the exact same question to him when I was with him, because to me it's like he never, even if he's playing like crazy shit, he like never is like, oh man, he's just like playing too much, or like it's always like feels so like on purpose. Everything is like very on purpose. And he just dropped so many cool kind of nuggets of wisdom this past weekend. It was like he is honestly why I wanted to be a keyboard player. When I heard Messi Martin Wood, I was like, oh, I could play organ and Rhodes, and like I could do that. And that is what really opened the whole door for me of like this whole thing, you know? So it was like a big deal for me to like meet him and hang out. And I was able to ask him like a bunch of questions, and he like showed me his drawbar settings, and like we talked about all different kind of philosophy things. And like, so the phrasing thing, which I noticed with him this weekend, he will do certain things, like he'll play like a 1 bar loop in that setting. He'll be like, and it like allows everyone else to like grab onto it. He was doing really cool things with phrasing, but I was asking him about like phrasing too. Like, if you notice when he plays, he is mouthing what he's playing the whole time. Even if he's on like clap, he's like, like you can see his mouth is constantly doing that. And that is something I've known about this for a while, because I've seen him do it for a long time, and I've seen like other musicians do it too. And have you ever seen like John Fishman when he's playing drums? He's like he's singing when he's playing. So I've known this lesson for a long time, but for some reason I keep like forgetting, and I keep like getting reminded about like, come on, man, you like know this shit. So, but I think also with phrasing, singing what you play, but then also like leave enough room after you play something for it to like land. Like almost think of it like an echo mountain. If you like, you know, like that. And then when you do that, then like all the other instruments come through, and it leaves space for them to answer. And then what they play as an answer can inspire. If you always need to be listening to everyone else, not yourself. Always like, and if everyone's doing that, then you have like the symbiotic organism thing. And so when somebody's random idea happens, then you can, if you're listening to them, then that influences you. And that's when the magic shit happens, I think, in this kind of improvisational music.
Yeah, you mentioned this symbiotic organism. You know, love talking about the symbiotic organism.
Yeah.
What is that state like for you when you're tapped into that?
Honestly, it's crazy because I listen back to shows like being in the film room, like you're saying, and I can't listen too much. I have to like limit it, because if I listen too much, then I'll just get like, I don't even know it's good anymore. But one of the things that I've noticed is like some of the best jams, like 20 minutes goes by and like I don't remember any of it. And it's that flow state thing where you just are lost in it. And that's like what is so great. One of the things that's like so great about music is like you pass time, and like, you know, making stuff too. Like 5 hours can go by and you're like, holy shit, I just made this crazy song, and all this time went by. That all that time you could have been ruminating anxious thoughts about whatever your life, and like scrolling and like seeing something on Instagram that like triggers you and shit. Like, but instead you spent all this time in some like flow state dream world, and then there's like something to show for it too. Like you can like this thing, and even if it's not good, it's like still wasn't a waste of time. I had a good time making that. And so that, you know, that I think it's amazing. Like my memory already is pretty bad. I think I'm kind of like used to have a good memory. Now it's like, won't go into this huge thing about sleeping, but everyone should read the book Why We Sleep. It's like the greatest book ever. And they talk about how if you drink alcohol or smoke weed, it ruins your REM sleep. And that's when your brain takes memories from short term and puts them in long term. So if you are drinking right before bed, like basically very little goes from the short term to the long term.
Mm.
Just sleep is tight.
Sleep is tight.
Sleep is tight.
Eli, the man. So glad to have you here, dude. If you're in Ohio, you'll be seeing Eli, relatively soon. Love having you through here. Twerkapod.
Yep.
Yeah.
Classic. I
You'll
wore
be at
this
the workout, right?
I always see you at Legend Valley.
Yes, sir. Legend
So-
Valley. Nice.
The
Well-
Valley of Legends.
Well, if you made it this far, thank you for tuning in. Big shout out to our sponsor, Thrax. Check them out if you're looking for some incredibly high quality CBD and THC gummies. Also, big shout out to J&J Distribution. Retailers, check out their brands Kush Burst, Death by Gummy Bears, and Compassionate Buds. Also, big shout out to SEM Tickets. If you're throwing events and you're looking for a reliable ticketing source that's well priced, look no further. Got links in the description. Much love, y'all.